In London, technology is the Silicon Roundabout. Introducing a new talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. Silicon Real. Each week, interviewing entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, financial technology, accelerators, and incubators in an exciting three-person format. Learn about the people behind the innovation. Locally filmed, locally sourced. Silicon Real. It's about the people. Okay, let's do this. This is Silicon Real, the weekly talk show dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I am Brian Rose. I also host London Real, which is a similar setup. We all sit around this table. We get three people. We try to figure some things out. We've had people like Tim Ferriss from the 4-Hour Everything. We've had Max Kaiser from Russia Today literally yelling about Bitcoin into your microphone. We had George Galloway here who charmed the pants off of me. So if you want to check that out, please do. But we're here today to talk about tech. My co-host switched at the last minute and is Mr. Colin Pyle, who is a entrepreneur here in London who raced over to sit in for Mr. Bryce Keane. Colin, you're doing online language schools. You got coffee pods from COO Cafe. What's going on?
Yeah, busy. So I'm off to Italy and Germany again to nail this down. Supply chain is difficult. It's not easy, but we're getting there. And the coffee's tasting great. So excited to let it go to the public soon.
Good. That's why you get paid the big bucks to do this operational stuff.
I don't know about big bucks, but
all right.
Big equity.
Big equity. All right, that's good. Before we get to our guests, I just wanted to thank TaskRabbit. They are the outsourcing company that allows you to kind of get other people to do jobs such as household tasks and other skilled labor. They're actually doing a lot of work for us on Silicon Real. They're really good. Is it Bonnie?
Bonnie's killing it.
Okay.
And killing it in a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people.
We had about 3 weeks ago, we had a guest, Lauren Sherman. She's the head of community for TaskRabbit. They just got to London a few months ago, and we wish them all the best. It's a great idea. It's a great concept, and they're really serious about implementing it.
Saving us lots of time.
Yeah, they are. And if you want to check that out, you can get 25 pounds free. Just use the code REAL25. Literally, that you can get someone to clean your house or do your plumbing or fix your URL for you on like GoDaddy is what you had her do.
That's
right?
what I had her do one time, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all good. Yeah. So thanks to them. Let's get going with the show. Our guest today is Divinia Knowles, who is the COO and CFO of Mind Candy, which is a British entertainment company formed in 2004 by Michael Acton Smith. It's based right here in Shoreditch, so you're a home girl. You guys are responsible for Moshi Monsters, which is a virtual world where 80 million children socialize and play games. That's crazy.
That's bananas.
Last year, I believe Moshi Monsters became the most licensed property in the UK. Welcome to Silicon Real. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a real honor, and you guys are always mentioned as a company by all the startups around here as someone that like they can grow up and be like one day. I mean, I don't know if you know that, but you guys really inspire like a lot of people in the community.
Well, I think that's amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing place to be, I think, and I'm honoured.
I had one of my most embarrassing moments on London Real when Bryce Keane was here and he was representing the whole area, and he mentioned, or maybe it was a Silicon Real in the beginning, and he mentioned Moshi Monsters, and this is what I say, and I'm so embarrassed to say it. I said, "What is a Moshi Monster?"
I know.
And
I was bad too because we were like, we're going to the drink about. I'm like, tell us about the drink about. He's like, Michael Acton Smith sort of helped him out, started out. I'm like, Michael Acton, sorry. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I was.
Gosh, you hadn't even heard of Michael. Wow.
Yeah, I hadn't. I'm really sorry, Michael, if you're listening. I have definitely heard of you now and Moshi Monsters. So.
We were real newbies back in the day, but now we kind of know. I was just wondering. I mean, you've been at the company since 2006. Is that about right?
That's right. Yeah.
So you were there when the monsters were created.
Yes.
And I was just wondering if you could remember back to the day when people started talking about this concept, and did people or you kind of know this had legs from the beginning, because it's pretty out there.
I know. It's an interesting one because I do remember when Michael first was kind of sketching in coffee shops, and he had ideas for characters, and he'd been around to a lot of trade shows with his other company, Firebox, really loved virtual pets, really interested in kind of kids and gaming and all of that sort of stuff. And he had this amazing idea for a social network for kids. And we were doing publicity at the time and it wasn't going very well. And we kind of knew that we had to do something quite drastic to kind of make the company successful going forward. And I just remember seeing the early sketches and just thinking that it was so charming and so wonderful. And it'd be amazing to do something with kids as well, because it's kind of worthy, something nice about that. I just thought it was really, really amazing. I thought a social network for kids are really underserved. A lot of time they're dumbed down as well. Kids love to socialise. But everything about it was good and the characters were just special. And I had a really good sense that it'd be amazing.
And this is back in the days when there were literally tumbleweeds going through the Old Street roundabout. I mean, there was no one around here, right? There was no, let alone no Google Campus. That was years to come, but like very few people.
Well, we weren't here then either.
You weren't? Okay, well, there you go.
No. We were next to a cement works in Battersea. So,
yeah, you guys started in Battersea. Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you move here to this area?
We moved here in 2010. Yeah.
Okay.
So not for we were there for quite some time. And it did get to, we were like, it's about 4,000 square feet and there were lots of people crammed into that office, elbow to elbow. We really packed people in before we moved. But yeah, it's been really successful and Moshi Monsters has been amazing. Kids absolutely love it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I watch my 9-year-old. She's all over the Moshi Monsters. And like I watch her play this and I watch her play Minecraft, and those are both okay because she's always using her brain and she's answering questions and these are good things.
So can you just explain for me the Moshi Monster game, I guess, for an adult with no children?
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
So Moshi Monsters is a virtual pet experience that's also a social network for children.
Okay.
It's aimed at kids between the ages of 7 and 12, and there are 6 main monsters you adopt and you nurture and look after and you play with. But you can also message your friends. You can have your best friends on there. It's really kind of got stealth education baked in because you have to answer questions to earn currency to feed your monster. So it's like a lovely kind of cycle of things that you do on there. And when we first started it, it was just a monster in a room, and kids went crazy for it because you could adopt your own pet monster,
Right.
which was the cool kind of tagline. And then it just spread in playgrounds because kids just shared it with one another
Sure.
and they wanted to message each other and so on. And then we built out the world, and it was kind of a bit like Frankenstein's monster because we just added this and added that and added this. And so now the world is huge. It's based around a map. It's got kind of like different islands that you can go onto. It's amazing.
Can
It's
adults
really, really
play or no?
Yeah, yeah. So cool. We have a chief community and safety officer, and she's kind of she's mid-50s, and the kid, she's been on it for years and years and years, and the kids kind of all think that she can't be that old.
And so when I was growing up, they had the Tamagotchi doll.
Yeah.
So it's like that on.
Yeah, it's like
steroids.
that,
Yeah.
but like kind of magnified. Yeah, like it's
big
huge.
time. And teched up.
And what was
Very cool.
the evolution from like 07 to 10 to now? Did it take a while to get going? I mean, you said kids mentioned it in the playground, but did they know how to get to a browser at the time? Well, because you were accelerating right when tech and mobile was kind of accelerating.
Yeah, so it's web-based, the original game, and kids were playing things like Club Penguin, which is our biggest competitor, so they already could go on different virtual worlds, and Neopets was a big thing as well. So there were other things they could do online, so it wasn't an unusual play pattern, it was just a new thing for them. It is incredibly viral because you can kind of connect with your friends and send them gifts and all of this other stuff, so kids did spread it in playgrounds, but we started building it in 2007, launched it in 2008. When we put in all the social features, friends, tree, there's a wall like in Facebook, you can message kids one-on-one. And once we did all of that stuff, it really started to take off. It was one of those hockey stick curves that you don't often see. And then we sort of layered on some really clever marketing, did lots of TV advertising, and it just went crazy. And they're just kind of kids just spreading it everywhere. Parents really got involved in it as well because they liked the fact that it was kind of semi-educational. And then in 2010, we started doing licensing deals. So we signed our first licensing deal with Penguin, that was books. And then we did trading cards, and then we did kind of little figurines and toys and all sorts of other stuff. The toys got banned in school playgrounds, which is great. We love it when that happens because then kids want it even more. And it really took off. So 2012 was massive. It was really huge. And that was kind of its height on web. And it's interesting because there's been this really interesting shift. Kids are moving onto mobiles and tablet devices. And so we've been spending the last year really building out our mobile offering for Moshi and other IPs as well. So it's been an interesting kind of transition for the company from that original web business, web, physical, and now onto mobile. So that's what we've been doing. But yeah, it's been an amazing ride. Really cool.
You guys had a feature film.
We did, yeah.
So that's going from a monster in a room in
Yeah.
2007 to the big screen.
To huge, and
That's
it's
amazing.
it's so funny. I just remember when in the very early days of kind of Moshi Monsters, and you'd meet people, and you'd say, "I work for Mind Candy," and they're like, "Who are they?" And you'd say, "Oh, we're building Moshi Monsters," and they were like, "What's that?" And now you say it in the UK, and parents are like, "Oh, not that thing. I should have shares in you," and it's completely different. Yeah, it's amazing. But I do remember when it was just you had to explain it everywhere you went, and people were like, "That's weird."
Yeah.
But it's really cool. Yeah.
And music as well. You guys signed something with Sony Music last year, or have
Yeah.
you been doing something with music the whole time?
Mm-hmm. So we did music back in 2010, and we launched our first album, which is Music Rocks. It has 13 tracks on it, which are also music videos that you can watch on YouTube. And the YouTube videos have millions and millions of views. But the album, it went to number 4. It beat Madonna. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Wow.
And do adults listen to this too?
Well, I like to think so. I mean, the music's cool because it kind of adds bits to the story that you wouldn't already know. So, for example, Dr. Strangeglove is the villain in Moshi Monsters, and the music video about him tells you how he lost his hand, which you can't really find out anywhere else. So it kind of fills in gaps in the story, and that's why kids love them so much. And they're animated, and they're slapstick, and they're silly, and there are odd jokes in there for parents and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's what's good. If you ever watch like the old Popeyes or watch The Simpsons, there's like 2 levels of humor.
SpongeBob.
Yeah, SpongeBob
yeah.
is like, or maybe 3 levels. I don't know. Depending on how you look at it. This is episode 31 or 32 on Silicon Reel, and I think you're the very first entertainment company that we've had on.
Yeah.
We've had all the not the usual suspects, but all the tech startups that want to, outsource all this unusable inventory, Y-Plan, Halo, that kind of thing. We've had the people that want to create new tech products, Pixel Pin, that kind of thing. But we really haven't had anyone whose main job is to entertain. And it just must be strange because you guys started from so small and you created these products. I mean, you guys are competing against the big entertainment companies in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And what makes you guys think you can do that? Or is that part of the innovator's dilemma that you guys do it better?
It's an interesting one. I think IP is fascinating because it's hard to do. And there aren't that many companies, I think, that can create really interesting IP from scratch. So it's not like it's kind of a defensible idea because it's not going to be hundreds of companies that try and enter that space. You have to have a certain DNA to do that. We are going up against the big companies, but the interesting thing about the bigger companies is that they struggle with digital. Even Disney, their digital side is not great. And they're really struggling with how they kind of approach digital, and their digital products are okay, but they're not kind of hugely successful. So we are attacking it from that angle. We can be a digital entertainment company because we have that DNA from the scratch, whereas with those guys, it's like trying to turn a tanker and get that DNA in their business.
But they've been turning for 5 years. It must be surprising to you that they haven't got it right quicker. Or is it not?
Not really, not given how big they are. I mean, these are massive corporations. It's hard for them to kind of change their DNA over a period of time. They will get it eventually, but we have time in that time to kind of disrupt and kind of get big. But yeah, I just think that we as a company have a really innate understanding now of kids, and we've built up some really interesting expertise. So yeah, we can be a challenger, and who doesn't love an underdog as well? That's the other thing about this. People kind of love our story because all of the companies we're up against are big behemoth companies and a little challenger company. But yeah, I think that we do have the DNA to do this. And right now we're producing 2 other IPs that aren't Moshi. So this is the test of whether we can really do this and do it multiple times as well with different IPs. But they're amazing, so I think the answer is yes.
Is that the trick? I mean, because you guys have been doing Moshi for 6-7 years, and is it fair to say that is your main income stream? Everything Moshi?
Everything Moshi at the moment is our main income stream. But Moshi is interesting because it has over 200 characters in Moshi that are all quite different. So we've not just produced one thing and then carried on with it. We've adapted that over a period of time. But now it is time to prove that we can do other things for other demographics as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your major source of revenue, is it in-game purchases?
So it's half and half,
Okay.
half digital and half physical now.
Okay.
And that's kind of crept up over a period of time. But yeah, we have half and half revenue now.
Cool. And there's quite a bit of drama going on right now about in-game purchases and controlling it. Maybe you could shed some light on that and where you guys stand.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because it's like watching an evolution in the market.
Right.
So I think in different countries, so in the US, in-app purchasing and kids sort of feels like less of an issue because they're kind of more used to it. It's a more established thing there. I think that's where we will get to as well. It's really difficult. The OFT are currently conducting investigations into these different companies and aggressive kind of commercialization practices towards children and so on. And we don't want to do that. We want children to really enjoy our products and so on. But ultimately, we're also a business. So we're just trying to be really mindful of kids and not trying to over-commercialize children, but also trying to produce something that's of value to children and parents. Use the trust that we have with parents as well, so that we have that as kind of part of our DNA too. But ultimately, we're a business. We feel like the in-app purchases thing will change over a period of time, and we will try and help educate children, parents along that journey, as we have done with the web as well.
It's crazy. You hear sort of these horror stories of kids racking up like 5-10 grand bills through in-app purchases, and it's tricky. I think it's really interesting that sort of the generation, I guess maybe my age or a little bit younger, I'm 32, we're going to be on the same side of tech as our kids. So we'll be a little bit more aware of controlling that sort of thing. Whereas if it's, a 55-year-old parent or 60-year-old parent who's not so techie, and their kid really is, then they just have no idea what's going on.
And it's kind of interesting as well, because so I have a 6-year-old nephew and he's amazing. And this year for Christmas, he got a tablet. So my brother, who's quite tech savvy, he just set it all up for him, set the right kind of defaults and settings and things, so he can't get himself into trouble. And it's kind of like good parenting and what have you. And if he wants to buy something, he asks and all the rest of that. But my brother's not going to stop him from kind of enjoying entertainment and purchasing things if he wants to, but it's going to be done in a responsible way with my brother's kind of intervention as well, kind of his involvement. So I think we have to get to that rather than just saying that kids aren't allowed to buy anything, because Moshi, kids have subscriptions to Moshi. They are purchasing, but they get a lot of value out of Moshi, and parents enjoy that. And parents are on board with that, so I think we need to get to that.
I've seen pictures of your office, and it looks like, a virtual playland. They got a slide. They got like all these crazy, just like worlds that seem to be in there. And like one of your employees was quoted as, "The culture here is playful, passionate, and inspiring." And you've got over 200 employees, or pushing 200?
Just under 200, yeah.
And you're in the entertainment sphere, which is completely different than most companies around here. You need creative people.
Absolutely.
If you don't create, then you guys won't win in the long run. So how do you? I guess this is a conscious thing that you and Michael promote inside the company, and how important is that, and how do you keep that going?
Yeah, it's huge. One of the main things, we want our employees to be creative and passionate and playful and really enjoy coming to work every day, enjoy their environment, feel like they can create there. So it is like a kid's playground when you go in there. It's also partially because we conduct kids tours and kids come in and use a test, and we really want them to feel like they're inside our kind of creative world and they're inside Moshi. But for our staff, we try and be playful. We encourage them to have kind of creative time, good ideas. They go down the slide. We have kind of staff lunches. We get people together. We kind of promote by having kind of after work clubs and all of that sort of thing, and really try and give them an environment like no other, so that they can continue to enjoy themselves there. Because I feel like that's inspirational at the end of the day. They'll feel inspired to do more, be more creative. And actually, the ideas that we have internally can't all come from one person. We're creating a boys IP at the moment, which is just beautiful. It's amazing. And the idea came from a guy internally who's one of our art directors, and he has kids. And he just, from playing with his kids, he kind of came up with this amazing idea for an IP. And it's just incredible. And we want that. We want to actively encourage that. So it's all part of the same thing, really, encouraging ideas and creativity. It's hard to do, though.
Yeah, it must be tricky. It must be tricky just to keep people excited to come to work every day. I mean, it's hard to do. Most companies fail at that.
Do you fear, as you guys get bigger, that it's going to be more and more difficult to sort of fall over that corporate cliff of sort of grayness?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Any growing business is going to find it really hard to keep that going. I feel like we have a really good foundation, because it is kind of, our values are all around being creative and playful and passionate and so on. So we have a kind of good start and a good foundation, but I think we have to be mindful of it as we go on and really kind of keep an eye on it and make sure that we develop that as we go. But yeah, more slides, more bean bags, getting inspirational people into talk. We have MoshiCon every year, which is like a yearly conference where everyone gets together kind of somewhere else. We've been to Euro Disney and kind of other places, and we get people together and they speak passionately about what they care about and what they work on and all of that sort of stuff. So we just need to kind of keep that going, keep communication going, and not let it get too corporate either. It's hard to be corporate in that environment, actually, I think.
It's true, yeah. If there's any company that could do it, it's yours.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right,
yeah.
right.
You know, you're a COO and a CFO, our first on the show. And I'd be honest, I used to be a CFO. That was my job in the dot-com days in 99. I went back to New York and I was like, I'm going to be the CFO of luxuryfinder.com. That was the thing. And I was 28 and I was wearing my suit and tie to work. And after about a month, I realized that being the CFO is the most thankless job in the company. It was brutal, you know, it was brutal. And because you had to kind of make sure, let alone the COO, which is the operating officer, you have to make sure it all happens, yet you don't always get credit for the vision, even though many times in a startup, you're just as much part of that vision. I know you're on the board, et cetera.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, what's it like being the CFO, COO? What's a typical day for you?
My goodness. I don't have typical days. That's kind of probably what the best thing about my job is. Every day is completely different. The CFO stuff is interesting. I mean, I have an amazing finance team. It's worth pointing that out as well. And I did build it so that I could be COO and CFO. So they're really kind of good guys. They know what they're doing all the time. They're really great. CFO is a difficult one because it's largely a black box, and unless you tell people what you do, they're like, what exactly is that role? What do you do on a daily basis? And even when you explain it, I think people look at you like, what? But yeah.
Even like the CFO of Goldman Sachs, you're like, but what? What do you do? Because for every company, it's such a different job, isn't it?
It is a different job. I think, being the CFO of Mind Candy is great. We have a lot of diversified revenue streams. We're constantly creative about how we're going to keep the business growing. Obviously Moshi has done incredibly well, so we do have kind of good, healthy cash flow and all of that sort of stuff. But then we have been in situations as well when we were worried about making payroll and all that sort of stuff. So it's been a roller coaster. But I think startup CFOs are used to that, and you just have to be really careful, keep monitoring stuff. Make sure that you are always on top of things, that you're watching what's happening with your cash, that you're just being very mindful of what's going on. And even in, as creative as the company is, we have to make sure we have budgets, and we have to make sure that we have people who are responsible for revenue targets and all of that sort of stuff. And that's the stuff that you don't see. You see the slide and you see the AstroTurf and all of this other stuff. You don't see kind of all of the underlying foundation that keeps it going. And that's the thankless stuff that no one else sees. But it's weird, I don't know, we had a chief product officer who started about 6 months ago, and one of the first things he said to me is, by the way, thanks for doing all that stuff, because no one else would want to do that. It's kind of not really, they appreciate the creativity, and they appreciate that probably is kind of a bit of an unsung hero thing to do. But yeah, it's just a careful balance between the creativity and in our world as well. We could do anything, literally. Movies, animated series, we could do anything. And I think we just have to be very careful what we focus on, because, we are a business after all. We can't be too crazy. We just have to kind of keep the lights on and so on. The COO piece is really around strategy for the business, making sure that the management team are kind of all aligned, making sure that we're all kind of pulling in the right direction, making sure we have the right resources and the right people in the organisation and so on. So that one is kind of a very all over the place, kind of trying to be everywhere all the time. And yeah, it's just a constantly movable feast, I think. But enjoyable, really enjoyable.
I got a feeling if you were in a budget meeting with Divinia, she would be like, oh yeah? What about that? What about the 59p at the end of that?
Better
and
be
like,
prepared.
Yeah, you better be ready. Am I wrong?
Your background as an accountant too, right? Yeah.
I am an accountant, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
But I'm a management accountant. That's a more
sure.
analytical accountant rather than a financial accountant, which
Sure.
is a bit more hardcore. But yeah, I mean, I am tough on the finance stuff. But then on the flip side of that, I think people at Mind Candy are very respectful about that stuff. And we do go out of our way to try and teach people and educate them, and don't make it just a process they have to follow. It's more that they understand why we're trying to do it. And, we try and be transparent with our financials and all of that sort of stuff, so that they're part of it rather than just being kind of, doing what we're asking them to do. They're actually part of our story. So it's cool.
So how much does a slide cost? That's a real question.
How much? We didn't pay for our slide.
Oh, it's
No.
got it free. See, there
See,
you go.
well done.
There you go.
There
There
you
you go.
Get someone else to pay for
Our
it.
landlords
Other-
wanted us so much they paid
put
for
the
our
slide in.
slide.
Yeah. We are moving out unless we get a slide. See, I need to. That's a
That's
good
what. So
company.
your job isn't simply just to reel in the creatives and be like, okay, hold on a second, this is going to cost this, and I mean, is it part of
I
the
have
yin and
those
the yang?
moments.
You have those
I
moments.
have
okay.
those moments of like, hang on a second. Because it's lovely. Like, kind of, Michael is an incredibly creative soul as well. Like, he has notebooks full of ideas, and they're all amazing ideas. Any one of them, I'm sure, could be an incredibly successful business in its own right. But somebody has to be like, hold on a second. Like, what are we doing here? How is this going to, grow our business? Is it going to grow it in the right way? Is this going to work as part of our portfolio? So somebody has to be there to be the, not joy killer, but, kind of just to bring it all in.
Reel them in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like you would have a company structured this way with these kind of deals and revenue and licensing products without a very strong backbone, there set up by probably her to make sure that everything's happening. We had Jason Goodman from Albion here a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that one of their founders or one of the people on the board, I think it was Saul Klein, said you should be spending 50 to 60% of your time recruiting.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you think that's an accurate number, and if you spend a lot of your time recruiting.
Loads, yeah. Recruitment is a huge part of my job, but then it's a huge part of all of the chiefs at Mind Candy. They're all involved in recruitment. We're really careful about who we employ, want to make sure we have people who are good skills, high quality, but also really fit into our culture and share our values. So everyone's really involved in it. I meet everybody, so does Michael. And it sounds like overkill, but it's not really when you consider that you're building a business for the long term and you want to make sure that everyone is as invested as you are. So I don't deny that. That's a huge part. And I also look after HR and recruitment at Mind Candy anyway, directly. So it's my direct thing, but I believe it is also the responsibility of the whole company to look after recruitment.
What do you look for when they come in and see you for that 1 hour? Like, we really want you, but you got to get past the final gauntlet of Divinia. What kind of things do you ask them?
I really look for people who share our vision. They are drinking the Kool-Aid. They really kind of care about what we're trying to achieve as a digital entertainment company as much as we are. That they have that they've read about us. That they've kind of been really invested to the point that they wanted to find out as much as they could about us. They care. They know that they can add a lot of value. They are very playful. They're passionate. They know their stuff. They have really good. I mean, the list is kind of endless.
Yeah.
And recently, we kind of did this thing where we, between myself, Michael, the CEO, and our chief product officer, we shared the traits we look for in people, and all our lists were massive. Like, it felt like a bit of a laundry list and hard to kind of be someone on the receiving end of that. But actually, when you meet someone, I think that you just generally tend to know. Within about 10 minutes, you know.
Probably less.
We're probably less. You just know. But we have some amazing people at Mind Candy. I mean, the people quality there is huge. And we get people, we employ people here. We employ people from Europe. We get people over from the US. We've encouraged a lot of people to come over from the US to work with us. So we have people from everywhere. It's a very diverse culture.
What are some of the lessons you learned or mistakes you made that maybe other people could learn from? I think you've been quoted as saying you wish you had gotten into mobile sooner. Yeah. Is there anything that you can see that other people might learn from for things mistakes you guys made?
Yeah, I mean, that point is interesting because we could see where this was going. We could see that kids were moving on to mobile. And we talked about mobile for years and we were saying, God, we should address that at some point. But because the web was going so well, we were kind of like, and we kind of have a lot going on, lots of kind of different things, including the licensing side and everything else. We were like, well, let's just not kind of go too crazy. Let's try and focus on what we're doing. And it kind of caught up on us. The transition was really quick. So that was definitely one. And I think that in future, if we see something like that happening, we will jump on it a lot faster because we were slow. And I say that, it's slightly tinged by the fact that I know that lots of other companies have been in exactly the same position. So I know that we're not alone, but I wish we were faster. Hiring, made some terrible hiring mistakes. As much as we're careful, I have done that. And I know, again, I'm sure every company has done that. And also, when we've made a mistake, sometimes we've been really slow to deal with it. And that's, I think, also very dangerous. We've tried to get better about how we manage that. Also, kind of managing the cultural piece. You don't want to upset people in your organisation when you do that, but you do have to deal with that fast.
It's hard getting rid of people, right?
Yes, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, especially people that you have invested a lot in and they have invested a lot in you, and they may not be right for your organisation, and that's a hard one. That's really hard. That's not something that I necessarily enjoy, but it's a necessary evil. We've done some deals in the past that have gone south, but I'm sure lots of other companies can say the same. And we've learned a lot from doing those deals and what it's like to have really trusted partners and build really great relationships with other companies and all of that sort of thing. So lots of lessons, but I feel like building businesses is essentially about making a lot of mistakes and then just learning from them and making sure you don't make them twice.
Amen to that. Amen. How much of your market is in the US?
Not as much as we'd like. It's interesting because from a web perspective, we kind of almost have the same amount of users in the UK as we do in the US, but that's more of a drop in the ocean there because the market's so huge. So we're targeting the US this year, and we really think that the mobile titles we've created will help to unlock the US for us. And that will be massive when we do that. So Moshi, some kids know Moshi there. It's really mixed. It didn't take off quite in the same way as the UK did, but we think with mobile we can probably crack that. And with other IPs as well, targeting different demographics and so on.
How about Asia? Are you in Asia at all?
We're not at the moment, but again, mobile, because it's easy localization, that will also unlock other markets. The fascinating thing about Moshi, which kind of is huge from an opportunity perspective, is that it was only ever in English. Yeah. So it was huge in English-speaking markets, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, etc. But it was never localized. So there are all these kids in the world who don't even know that it exists, and soon they will, which will be nice.
And they're visual. They're cool little monsters. So it seems like it's an easy, adaptable piece.
Absolutely. And everyone says that it looks quite Japanesey, and we've never tested that.
It just seems like something like Japanese. Well, the Tamagotchi doll, I guess, was Japanese. But then, just China, the market. Well, I was just reading something. The Chinese New Year has just sort of happened. And on the Chinese New Year television special, 700 million people tuned in, right? So you think about this Super Bowl that was on Sunday. I think it was like 180. It was like the biggest event, and this is like 6 times.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
And people that will have mobiles and will have small amounts of incremental income.
Well, that's the thing, right? The barrier to entry is so low.
It's huge, but the mobile market there is totally different in China. The operators there are much bigger. The kind of app stores are not as kind of like, it's much more fragmented. So when we do enter China, we're going to have to really think about how we do it.
It's just China Mobile.
That's
it. You're friendly with them and
you're in
good shape. Yeah. But Alibaba just got a valuation above Facebook almost now, which is crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, it's an interesting market. But talk to us about London. You've been around for a while. You've seen this whole area become crazy. You've seen probably the nth incubator come and go. You've seen all these crazy stories that are happening. And obviously you spent time on the west coast of the U.S. and raised money and all that kind of thing. What are we doing right in London, and what have we not got right yet?
I think we are shining a light on entrepreneurialism, which I love. And Silicon Roundabout is interesting because when you actually look at London, it's not the only hub. There's now like Silicon Hill, and
where's that?
That's in Notting Hill.
Okay.
And there's loads of them. Like I know Silicon Beach is in Brighton, but not in London. But these hubs are everywhere, and all over the United Kingdom as well. Manchester as well is huge. So it's interesting because the PR is focused here, but I think that's more because it's kind of trying to build up entrepreneurialism and startups and what it's like to work in a startup and really get that across to people, because I think it's a little bit unknown, far more kind of US centric and so on. So I love kind of all of that sort of stuff. I think as well the incubator thing is good. We've created a lot of incubators that kind of are getting startups going and giving them a lot of support. And VCs are getting more involved with those incubators. So from very early kind of stage, there are advisors that can help people. I still think there's a funding gap. There's like a early stage funding gap that we somehow need to kind of get across.
Angel, Series A, both.
Somewhere between Angel and Series A, actually. I feel like there is that is problematic for startups. I think that so we're encouraging startups, which is great, but there needs to be more infrastructure and so on. That piece is good. I think it's an interesting ecosystem for startups now. And actually, lots of the startups, when we first came to Silicon Roundabout, and we were one of the sort of bigger ones, now some of the smaller ones are really starting to grow. So it's becoming really interesting that lots of the smaller startups are now becoming bigger startups. We've got a lot more hope of there being some form of kind of London IPO or something exciting, because there are lots of different companies taking shape. Yeah.
Is that something you would ever consider, the IPO, asking straight to the CFO?
Oh, we have so much going on at the moment, and we have so many things that we want to do. We want to be truly global. We want to have more than one IP. We want to really get onto mobile. We've got so much work to do that is kind of it's a dream in the future, but it's kind of distant. So we don't have any formal plans or anything. We're just kind of going to keep building our business and see what happens. So that's a politician's answer to your question.
Very good answer. Very skilled. I like that.
You've answered that before.
You said the second city you would rather live in is San Francisco, I believe. I don't know if I quoted you right, but
did I say that?
Yeah, I think you did say that. And I was just wondering,
the internet.
I know.
We say it once, it's record.
How would Moshi be different if you guys were located in San Francisco, or when you travel to LA or San Francisco, like Los Angeles, the center of whatever it is, creation and media technically? What do you see differently there, or how would your company be different if you were located in California than say here?
The vibe is slightly different, I'd say. Like San Francisco is amazing. And every time we go there, we're really lucky because we seem to be quite well connected in the sense that we just tend to get invited around to other startups. So you kind of get to go in and see what they're all about and kind of sense the vibe. You have these cute, cuddly
creatures, so everyone wants to be nice to you.
But given as well that we're less well known there, it's kind of quite nice that people are prepared to invite us in anyway. It's kind of like a bit more of a relaxed vibe. Startups are more well known. People kind of like understand startups there when their kind of employees understand startups more. They understand kind of like the share options thing and being a company owner and what it's like to just really kind of have to build a business from scratch and maybe sleep under your desk and all of that sort of stuff. That's kind of a known in the US. And I think here in the UK, that's not a known. You get people kind of, the attitude's slightly different. People really care about their work-life balance. Not that they shouldn't, but I kind of think that there's a passion thing about building a startup from scratch. You've got to really kind of care about it to the point where your work and your life aren't dissimilar. I kind of, when people talk to me about work-life balance, and this is a completely personal thing.
You're already not getting hired.
It's completely my opinion, but I don't have a work-life balance because I love what I do so much. And so it's kind of like my life intertwined. And when I met Michael, that's what I loved about him from the first moment I met him, and from like previous owner-founders I've worked with as well. I think more that's kind of now here that's different. And people can have a work-life balance if they go and work in a bigger organisation. But I think if you're building a startup from scratch, it's got to be in your soul. You've got to care about it so much and want to work on it. And even when you're not thinking about it, you are thinking about it. You know what I mean? When you're in the shower and when you're making your breakfast and you're just thinking about it. Yeah, I think that's much different, US, UK, much different.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've heard that. We've definitely heard that before. And I do think about London Real in the shower, now that I think about it.
London Real? You don't think about Silicon Real?
No, I
in
do
the shower?
Silicon Real too as well. Okay. Yeah, but you have it running like a well-oiled machine, so Colin's got that. And what's an attribute that you think is positive for London? If maybe the one you previously mentioned isn't something that you bump into here all the time, what's something that you think is a pro about the British vibe here when it comes to startups?
Diversity, probably. Like, there's a lot of diversity here, which I kind of really like. London is such a great city as well. Like, I really do think that London is a great place to have a business because you've got so much access to everything. There's some really kind of great tax breaks, all that sort of stuff. There's infrastructure. I think that's good. I think all that stuff is really cool. I just think we have to sort of improve the vibe and kind of. I find it fascinating that lots of people who kind of come to interview at Mind Candy don't really understand why a startup is different. And I feel like that should sort of, in schools, you should kind of understand that entrepreneurship is an option. You should understand what it's like to be in a company that's kind of really new and interesting and so on. And all that stuff has to kind of come in as well. But yeah, London is a wonderful city. And I think that this, is a great place to start a company as well as anywhere else. I mean, and I love the fact here that we don't have we have a talent war for certain staff, but it's nowhere near as bad as it is in San Francisco.
Right, that's rough, right?
That's rough, yeah. I wouldn't want to enter into that. We also have a studio in Brighton, And that's a great place too. That's Silicon Beach, by the
Okay.
way.
I didn't know these terms.
I didn't know about the beach. I knew about Silicon Hill.
Hill. Okay.
I live in
You
Notting
live
Hill.
out there, yeah.
Or the dodgy end of Notting Hill.
Yeah. Silicon Valley. Hill.
Ladbroke Grove.
Colin, what am I missing here? Or am I missing anything?
No, I think it's incredible. I maybe you could touch on. I think you know, you have a professional duty within a very entrepreneurial and fun sort of startup. How did you join Mind Candy? Maybe talk a little bit about, and how did you sort of go through the university, you know, get your accounting, and then sort of end up at Mind Candy? I think it's so inspiring to other people to say, you know, you can go get a degree, go get a professional designation, and still do the entrepreneurial thing.
Yeah. My journey into Mind Candy is a really odd one as well. So I studied archaeology when I was at university. When I was a kid, my parents were really into old houses and historic monuments and all that sort of thing. So when I was a kid, and we kind of spent a lot of our holidays in UK with my grandparents, they're amazing. And yeah, we kind of did that whole thing, and I got really interested in history. So I studied history, went into archaeology at university, left university, still loved kind of history and old stuff. So I went to work in the antiques industry, and so went to work in the London Silver Vaults in Chancery Lane, which is like 2 flights underground, and it is like a proper bank vault. And there are kind of all of these silver vaults under there, and it's just like a consumer kind of silver buying place. You get lots of kind of very high wealth individuals kind of that go and buy their silverware there, as you do. And I really kind of got into the antique side of things, really kind of enjoyed that. And I had a great guy that I worked for who used to just kind of mentor me. He spent his time kind of like, I'm gonna teach you, that sort of thing. Loved it so much that I then moved into antique furniture and interior design. Went to run a studio that kind of like a showroom over 2 floors in Pimlico Road in Chelsea. And that was incredible, like the most amazing, we made the most amazing furniture. We worked with, we did restoration work for kind of the Soane Museum and Horace Walpole's house in Strawberry Hill. An amazing client list as well, kind of Madonna and Mick Jagger and all these other people that we did work for, and worked with some really famous interior designers like Colfax and Fowler and so on. So I absolutely loved working there. It's unbelievable. It's just like amazing, kind of different every day. But I kind of was really aware that this whole digital thing was happening, and I'd kind of really loved using the internet and so on. And the antiques interior design industry is so low tech, it's kind of scary. And they're like, ooh, what's a website? That sort of thing. And handwritten invoices and all of that. And I just kind of thought, I really need to get into this digital thing, because this is going to be where the world goes. Saw a coded advert in The Guardian, decoded it, sent my CV, went and met Michael when we were at Battersea next to the cement works, and just so totally inspired by him, because he's such a creative genius, and he lives and breathes startups, and he'd already done a previous startup, Firebox.com, from when he left university. Got on really well with him, and then started at Mind Candy. I resigned after 2 days because I kind of felt like it wasn't really for me. Couldn't really understand why. And this is the thing, I was never taught about entrepreneurship or startups, or I didn't really know that was an option. I was kind of like, you go into a bank, or you go into kind of a big career sort of thing. So it was kind of a really weird environment for me, and I didn't really understand it. And Michael was horrified that I left after 2 days, because kind of we'd really got on and so on. And he was like, you can't leave. So we met up in a pub, and he convinced me to come back.
So it was the 2 of you at Mind Candy, or there were other people as well?
I joined when it was about 15 people.
Okay,
so
and you were hired as a CFO or COO or different?
Studio manager at
Okay,
the time.
and then 2 days later, you're like, I'm not coming back.
No.
You just left, or did you tell anyone?
I decided not to go back, and I rang the then COO and just was really cross. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. I was quite cross.
Okay. And why did you go? Too many hours, too much craziness going on?
Kind of walked in, there was a desk, no computer. And I was like, okay, is this my desk? There was a pile of papers that was the accounts. And they were like, there you go. Oh, God. And just kind of chaos. Bit of an odd culture as well in the early days of Mind Candy. Very technically focused, because there were a lot of kind of developers and so on. You'd be sitting next to somebody, they'd Skype you instead of talking to you, and very strange. And I'd come from a really customer-facing environment where you just talk to people all the time and crazy. But Michael, kind of him being him, he had a lot of faith in me, which was interesting because I was so new. He was like, let's kind of build the culture together and let's really get this thing going. And this was Perplexity as well, which I didn't understand I kind of got it and thought it was a really interesting idea, but it wasn't something that I would want to play as a kind of game. So when we switched onto Moshi, I was much happier because I was just, I was like, I would play that. I'm a big kid, I would play that. So did that. During my time kind of as studio manager doing the accounts, I was also Michael's EA for a time, which was fun. I did my accounting qualification whilst I was doing all this stuff as well at My Candy, because I really wanted to kind of continue to be the financial person, but felt a duty to the company that I'd be qualified. And did a part-time HR qualification during that time because I took on the HR stuff. I used to do the legal stuff as well during that time. I was involved in product, kind of giving product. I mean, I was kind of like involved in all of it, just trying to build the bits that kind of Michael was kind of one flavour and I was the other side of that. And that was it, and just absolutely loved it from 15 all the way kind of to where we are today. Have really loved building it. It's been amazing. And if God forbid, when this all kind of ends in a positive way, I will go into another startup again. I'd do it again. Just love it so much.
Wow, that's a great story.
In
5 years from now, where will Moshi be? Like, what will we be seeing? Where will we see it? Will there be Moshi cars, or what's the evolution?
Self-driving cars by Moshi.
Moshi, yeah.
It will be an evergreen brand, much like the Disney brands. The brands you've seen for tens of years. It will still be very much front of mind. There'll be lots of Moshi content. It will be on mobiles, tablet devices. There'll still be physical product. There'll be kind of more animated content as well, I think. There'll still be music. It'll still be a massive entertainment franchise. It will just be reinvented as devices change, as kind of the story evolves. It will continue evolving, and we'll keep it as an evergreen brand because it's kind of the jewel in our crown. And really, I also think there's a generational element to Moshi that will be really interesting. As the people who grew up with it, that's 5 years ago. A lot of them are kind of going to enter their 20s. As they get a bit older, they can pass it on to their kids, and it will become a generational brand as well, which I think will be fascinating. And Mind Candy then will have other brands that it started that are just amazing. We have a boy brand we're creating at the moment, which I mentioned, which is going to be amazing. We're developing a communication platform, which is also IP based, and that's an amazing IP as well. So we'll be kind of we'll have multiple brands in our portfolio, and we'll just keep going and keep providing really amazing entertainment.
I like it, Moshi World. Divinia, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone who sits there, and I'm going to hit you with it. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Divinia and give that young lady a bit of advice, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that the next 10 years we're going to be really, really hard work, but we're going to be so rewarding that just keep working hard and stick at it and don't lose faith. Because some startups are really difficult, right? You have moments of huge elation, and especially as Moshi's been so successful, riding that wave, it's unbelievable. You sort of pinch yourself sometimes. You're like, am I still part of this? Oh my goodness. But some of it is really hard. We mentioned about kind of having to let people go, and sometimes there are financial issues and all of that sort of stuff. So it's really tough, and I think it would be quite easy sometimes to just think, this is too hard. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure how kind of I can do this. But it's so rewarding, such a wonderful thing to do that I would just say, stick with it, keep going, work really hard. Sometimes they're going to be really tough, but you'll get through it and you'll love it.
Good thoughts. Second part of that question is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received is about the people function, is that you should always strive to hire amazing people and never settle for somebody that you really don't believe hits your bar. You should always strive to hire the best people. Even if it takes you longer, you should hire the best people, because ultimately businesses are about the people that are in those businesses. And I really believe that's the way you create something amazing, something great.
Last part of that is to the 20-year-old listening who could be in China or America or Brazil. What advice do you give to them if they want to, get into the tech startup business?
Mm-hmm. Have confidence, and also find, if you're kind of going into somebody else's startup, it has to be something that you really believe in your soul. Because this is the other thing, I've kind of seen people come into Mind Candy as well, and they just want to work in a startup. But you have to really want to work in that startup, and you have to really believe in the mission of that startup. So I'd say either start your own thing, and don't be scared, and have confidence. Or if you're going into somebody else's startup, it has to be something that you care about in your soul. that's the advice I'd give.
And is it okay to go work for the man first, or to go work for, a corporation, or, in the antique industry, and then go into a startup?
If you want to. I had a wonderful time in the antiques industry. That's, that particularly is a very interesting industry to be in because you learn so much. But if, there are multiple routes into startups. You can go into it straight, you can go into it via a different route. Any way in is good. I just think that, if you're going into something else first, you'll learn a lot to go in with. If you're going into a startup, you have to be prepared for the fact that you might not be mentored, etc. They might just trying to move really, really fast, and you might have to just learn as you go and not be worried about that. But either way, I think it's absolutely justified. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for us. Did I miss anything? I think we covered everything.
I think it's great. Yeah.
I'm super impressed. I don't know about you, but
Blown away.
Yeah,
That's great.
If I was Michael, I would make sure you hold on to Divinia because someone might want to take her away from you. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's very kind of you, but I'm not going anywhere. I absolutely love Mind Candy. And I do believe in the vision in my soul, so I'm not going anywhere.
And that's after 8 years, which is
Do you have a Mind Candy
cool.
tattoo?
No, but not to say that it won't happen.
Okay.
That's fantastic. How do people get a hold of you?
I am Divinia Knowles on Twitter.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way. So DM me.
Okay. And if they want to come work for Mind Candy, you guys are hiring? You're always hiring?
We're always hiring, and we always look for exceptional people. So contact me or email recruitment@mindcandy.com, or just, we're in Bonhill Street. You could come by if you wanted, if you felt like it. But yeah, just hit us up. We have great opportunities in Mind Candy.
I'm going to come by and use the slide.
Oh, do.
At some point.
We
I would
do.
like to use the slide.
Yeah. Lawyers,
Yeah.
accountants, they've all been down the
Really?
slide. It's not limited to kids, it's everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I want to play Moshi Monsters, what's the best way? Go on to, the iTunes Store or Google app, or how do people find
So
and
you
play?
can go on the web, and it's moshimonsters.com, or you can download Moshi Village, which is our newest app in the App Store, which is just so beautiful and amazing. And over 10,000 kids have reviewed it. They all give it 4.5 and above. It's amazing. So yeah, either way, go either way.
You stole our tagline there at Silicon Reel. We say it's about the people. You just said that's what Moshi's about, and it's really true. It's just, it's so nice to have you come in here and just see your passion kind of bubble out of you, when it comes to this company, because that's what this stuff is all about, having all that crazy passion, and skills on top of it. So thanks for coming in and representing the community.
Very much.
It was big. If you're listening to us on iTunes, you can catch us in our beautiful faces on YouTube channel, Silicon Reel. Please subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Silicon Reel.
Yep.
Thanks to the TaskRabbiters. Check them out with the code REEL25. Anything else going on?
No, we're doing great, and a few people have reached out to us to help out, so keep them coming. Again, we're doing this for you guys, and the more people that help, the better it's going to be. So.
Great. And yeah, if you have ideas of who else should be on the show, then please tweet them to us. And we're going to keep doing this. We've been picked up on our 3rd season now by YouTube. And we're going to keep doing this every week and giving you the people of the scene. So Divinia, thanks so much for being here, and all the best.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cool. All right. Take care.
Datch means date catch.
Date.
Catch.
Okay.
Catch a date.
Catch a date.
It all clicked and was like, oh, I just need to make an app for women. And that was kind of how it all started. You don't necessarily have to change the way a news site is designed to think about female interaction, but I think there are some places where gender is really important, and I think looking at different spaces where actually building a product around how women interact, think and behave, the kind of triggers they see, how they behave online, is a really interesting space.